Giving correction without causing resentment. Have you ever tried to give someone some feedback and you were sincere, you wanted to help them, but it hurt the situation, it hurt their feelings, it made them feel bad, but you didn't mean that? If that's ever happened to you, then this video is for you. I know it's happened to me. I've given feedback to people and sincerely from the bottom of my heart I wanted to help them, and then they were angry at me. And we're going to talk about how to not have that happen, because who wants that? We all want to help people, and hopefully that's your motivation. If not, you need to really take a look inside and make sure you're doing it for the right reason. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. But you also want to think about why we need correction. We all need it. It's very important that we get feedback. And if you're not receiving feedback on what you're doing, if it's working or if it's not working, how are you ever going to get better? And if you get so sensitive yourself, like, I don't like it when people tell me I'm doing wrong things, then you're probably not very wise. Because what it says in the Bible is a wise person likes the correction from a friend. They like that, negative feedback saying, hey, here's how you can do better. If you want to be wise, then learn how that, you can take it, and then also, again, how to give it to someone, but we all need it. So before we talk about how, look at yourself and say, do you like it? And I personally love it now. And sometimes it's like, I don't want to have to do that again, and I don't like it, and it's painful to hear. But some of my biggest breakthroughs, and I bet yours have been the same, when someone told you you could do better, or it was bad, or it was wrong. Even though it didn't feel good at the time, you probably, if you had any sort of wisdom, you learned from it and got better. So think about that when we're giving the correction to other people. We want to make sure that our intentions are right to help them. And you also want to avoid pride whenever it's coming at you, so you don't let your ego or pride get in the way. So we're going to get right into how do we give correction without resentment. Step number one, make sure you have the right attitude. Is the attitude to help that person? Is it coming from your heart that you sincerely want to do the best for that person, not to prove yourself right? And sometimes people have their own feelings hurt, or they have their own pride or ego on the line, and someone probably told them they were doing it wrong. They're like, I'm not doing it wrong, you're doing it wrong. So they want to give that feedback or that correction to prove they're right. You know what? I have been sincerely wrong when I thought I was right. It's happened more than once that I knew I was right. So, sometimes you might know that you're right, but you're not. The second part is the right communication style. We're going to talk quite a bit about this. Choosing the words and the tonality and how you use the communication style is going to have your communication, that feedback, go a long way. And some people don't like this, but I call it sugarcoating. And I'm a great sugarcoater now compared to how I used to be. And if you're someone who, I'm going to give it to them straight. Do you know why they put sugarcoating on medicine? Because it tastes bad. It's like, I can't hardly swallow that. And I don't know if you've ever had sugar coating go off of a pill you were taking, like, oh, I gotta spit that out because it tastes so bad. You know what? That bad feedback can really taste bad in your mouth. It hurts a little bit. So you want to sugarcoat it. You need to learn how to sugarcoat. Now, whenever I say that, be honest, but say it gentle, say it kind. Say it the right way. Say it with the right tonality. And some of the mistakes people make when they're giving feedback is they're too harsh. They just give it straight up. And some people will say, give it to me straight up. I just want to know exactly what it is. Unless you know that person really well and you know that's how they like it, I'd be very careful, even if they told you they want it straight up. Still be very aware of the words and how you're delivering it. Another thing that you want to avoid is you always do that, or you never do that. Get away from always and never, because no one always does something, and you never follow through. They probably have followed through sometimes. And if someone's not following through, then you can say, you know what? I think you would do a lot better if we got to where you're following through more consistently, because you're doing so great here, you're doing great here, and that would just take it up a whole notch. And so we need to work on that. How can we figure that out? Instead of like, you never follow through and it's going to hurt you and it's hurting the company and it's damaging. Oh my goodness. There's miles of difference between how you give the feedback. So you want to avoid certain words like that. You also want to make sure that you don't ignore the other person's emotional state. The most successful people start learning how to read people. They can tell when someone's feeling bad or when they're feeling great. And I stop things immediately. If I see someone is feeling bad, I'll, right in the middle of a training, go, are you okay? What's going on? And sometimes someone might break down, but I try not to even have that happen. But care about people. Pay attention, and you may not want to, depending on the situation, stop it right then and there, but be sensitive to it. Understand their emotional state at that time. Emotional intelligence is a very important thing, so you need to start paying attention to the other person's emotions, your emotions, as you're giving that. Watch for clues and signals. You also want to look at the other person's perspective, because they're seeing it through their eyes, their personality, their information, their experiences in their life. And if they say, here's how I would do it, and you're thinking, I have 10 times the experience as you do, and you're not looking at it from their perspective, you may just dismiss it or ignore it. But I can also share that I have had some of the best lessons in my life come from people that had very little experience at what they were giving me advice on. And if I'm open to it, I'm like, that was pretty good advice. And it might have hurt a little bit in the beginning, but if you learn from it, you can get some great nuggets. So learn how to look at the other person's perspective when they're giving you feedback, and when you're giving it, look at where they're coming from. Another very important thing is be patient with people. And this is something I've worked on a lot. I still don't know that I've ever arrived in this area or ever will arrive, but I'm so much better, is have patience with people. Really have some empathy with where they're at. And don't try to rush it. And I many times want to get so much done in a day, and I have so much on my list, and I'm really results oriented. So I will sometimes cut people off and want to get right to the bottom line and get there way too quick. You know, a great coach has empathy. A great person giving feedback has patience. And I've had to learn how to have a whole lot more patience and empathy. And sometimes I can also say, some people closest to us that we don't do that with. The people like my own wife, sometimes I've shown her less patience than a client who hasn't done a tenth, or let's say they did 10 times worse at whatever that is that my wife may have like drove me crazy, but I treated them with patience and empathy, and I was very understanding. And then my wife will say something and I have no patience, no empathy. I mean, that's terrible. But I think the people closest to us sometimes get the worst of us. So we need to take a step back at times and learn to say, nope, I'm going to really notice if I'm doing this or not. And one last tip on this, and I've got a few more, but here's another one I should say, is active listening. Are you paying attention to them? Before you're giving feedback, make sure you're really understanding their point of view. So when someone says something, are you nodding? And don't just nod and do it and act like it, but nod, repeat it back to them. Many times when I've been active listening and 100% focused, and I say, so let me just kind of recap this a little bit. I'm going to summarize it if you don't mind. And I summarize it. Most of the time I'm right on the money. Many times they're like, well, that's portion of that, but here's what I was trying to get at. And I missed it. And you know what? That is very important before you start giving feedback. Did you miss it? You also want to think about offering solutions and not just, here's what you're doing wrong. And for me personally, when someone gives me feedback, I love it when they say, maybe if you tried it this way or you did that instead of, I just didn't like that. And I remember when someone was giving me feedback, and I remember when I first had a sales job, never really had been in sales before, and I was doing my best, and they said, "You sound like a salesman." And I thought, what am I supposed to sound like? What do you mean by that? There was nothing other than some, negative comments like, share more with me, tell me what I need to do, help me with that. Don't just point out someone's mistakes, but offer some advice if you have it. You also want to encourage people with a growth mindset. And if you're giving feedback, make sure that you have that empathy, but say it in this way. You can say, wow, that was really good, and this is another technique. They call it the sandwich technique. But you can say that was really good in this way, in this way, in this way. However, maybe if you tweak that a little, it might even be better. And if you notice, better is growth. Instead of maybe it won't be so bad. And no one would say it probably that way. But try to even verbalize things with a growth. Here's how we might even be able to improve that. So if you're looking for growth, they're looking for growth. People like to grow. Another thing that you may want to do is practice with someone. Role play. Make sure that you understand you can give feedback, and the more you do something, the better you get at it. And let me break down one of these scenarios, and I talked about it just a minute ago, but I'm going to dive into it a little bit more. And it really works if you do it sincerely and genuinely, and not exactly the way that I'm saying right now. So what you do is you compliment someone on what they're doing right. And sometimes they call it a compliment sandwich. So you compliment and say, you're really good at whatever they're really good at. Don't lie about it, don't exaggerate, but point out what they did do right, and then put the area of correction or feedback in the middle. And you can say, and one thing that we may want to work on is this right here. And I think if you nail that, it will take it up a whole other level, and you start giving the feedback in there, and then you can ask, what do you think about that? Does that make sense to you? Would that help or not? And ask for their feedback on the feedback. And many times they go, well, yeah, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And let them give that. And then after that, give them the compliment again. That's the compliment sandwich. You put the feedback, the negative thing you're addressing, right in the middle. And then you can, say, and again, I don't want you to dwell on that one point because everything else was so good. Let's just focus on that a little bit, and it'll be just even that much better. Then people feel good about wanting to get better versus like, I'm so frustrated, I just can't get this. It's so hard. So you also want to have grace on this, and grace means, give someone a break. You're not perfect. No one's perfect. And if you think you've arrived, you're getting ready to fall. So we need grace. We need mercy. We need, someone to give us a break, give them a break. And when you're giving it, when you're receiving it, make sure you have humility. And I'm going to really wrap up, even though I've mentioned this a little bit, with how to receive feedback. When you get it, take it with grace. Put your ego to the side. Be like the Bible talks about. Want that feedback so you can get better. It's the only way we get better is noticing what's not working and what we can improve on. So don't take it so personal and someone goes, how can I not? They're talking about me. Well, they're really talking about your actions. And when you're giving feedback to someone, you're not talking about them personally, their character. You're talking about how they're doing something. You're talking about their actions. Well, understand when someone's giving you feedback, they're talking about your actions. They're talking about maybe something you can improve on. So make sure that you put your ego aside, you receive it, and say, I'm going to be a wise person and take this the right way and learn from it. So I hope this has helped you. If you've enjoyed this, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget, hit the subscribe. And you know what, if you think someone else can learn from this and maybe how to give feedback a little bit better, we'll share it with someone. And as always, remember to expect success. Thanks.